If you want to build a social media following on Instagram, starting a YouTube channel, building a TikTok, or posting on LinkedIn on top of your 9 to 5 in a way that doesn't take over your life, still earns you a stable, decent enough income as a side hustle, and on top of everything else gives you more career visibility, you're going to want to watch this entire video because I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do to figure out what you want to post, when you want to post it, and how you're not going to burn out on top of your 9 to 5. To take the social media lingo out the way, what I'm essentially doing is helping you build a personal brand part-time alongside your 9 to 5. Building a personal brand is really essential when you have your 9 to 5. It allows you to make your reputation like a very loud thing. The advice I got when I started my corporate job was to focus and build on your personal brand. And at the time, I thought it was really icky. I thought it was just kind of gross. It was this fake thing that you put on at work, like a facade. But no. It's a real thing, especially with companies these days doing social media checks. And given the fact that I really believe your reputation extends to every single thing you do. So if you decide to build a social media following and have your reputation, your values, and everything be reflected in that, it's basically just like a really fun CV, which is why you can use it to increase your career visibility, make it so much easier to get proposed jobs that you actually want to do, on top of using that audience to generate extra income through multiple income streams that exist via online communities and social media, as well as just giving you a really nice thing to do outside of work. So let's strip it back to the basics. If you work a 9 to 5, you probably have very little time. And I'm going to use me at the beginning of my social media journey as an example. I worked a hectic job, and I'm going to say on average, I worked 7 to 7 p.m. That's a.m. to 7 p.m. I had a really strong desire to maintain the status quo and fit in. My salary was just not cutting it. I needed more money. However, I also did not have a life outside of my job. I had laundry and a social life to maintain. And generally, I was approaching that sense of purposelessness. I felt like I needed more purpose in life because, as we know now, corporate was just not my thing. We didn't know that at the time. Did this version of myself know that social media was going to be the answer to all of my prayers? No. And you probably don't think that or realize that now. But this version of myself, I just want to tell you, was literally about 4 to 5 years before I realized that social media had actually solved all of my problems. But if this version of me had the chance to watch this video back, she probably would have made the 20k that I made on top of my 9 to 5 income in half the time that it actually took me, the current version of myself. Now let's focus on this little big problem over here. When you're working a 9 to 5, a corporate 9 to 5, or generally a 9 to 5 is quite hectic. These hours I am kind of identifying as the core hours that I would not be mentally able to focus on anything else. So it includes kind of commuting, getting ready, having lunch, having to generally focus on my day job. And therefore what this tells me is that the hours around this is what I can use to put towards building a personal brand, which is why the thing that I think you should prioritize first if you're thinking about building an audience online is what is your basic bare minimum commitment to content that you could make, which is what I like to call your minimum viable content plan. Because no matter what you want to do, if you want to build a social media following on whatever social media network or platform you're doing that on, you need to post in order for that to ever exist. None of the growth strategies or tactics to be consistent or anything like that matter if you're not actually posting. So posting being the most important activity that you actually have to do means that your minimum viable content plan needs to be kind of at least locked in for the first few months that you are attempting to build the social media following. So your MVCP is essentially the amount of time it's going to take you, I'm going to call it hours, to actually post content. Now to post content, it's going to depend on what platform you actually go for in terms of how long it's going to take you to create that content. To create the content, it's going to be platform specific. So whether that's LinkedIn, it's kind of text posts, most of the time, maybe some carousels, or X, you're looking at a very little input time to compared to maybe YouTube or TikTok, where you're actually creating maybe more longer form or complex content. Not necessarily the case with TikTok especially, but we need to figure out how many hours it's going to take to create our one piece of content. Now, this could be one piece of content a week, or this could be multiple times a week. Now, what you need to do to figure that out is actually think about how much time you're willing to consistently dedicate to building your social media around the life that you have to live. On top of doing laundry, maintaining your social life, you need to actually figure out what is the minimum amount of time that you can actually commit. So if you were to post once a week, how long would that take you? If we reverse engineer that, we've got hours available to post. Now, with your hours available, I think you should start with at least 4 hours to just give yourself enough time to kind of prioritize it throughout the week, especially in the beginning, because especially as you go on with your minimum viable content plan and you start to grow your platforms and just generally get better at posting, thinking of ideas, editing, doing all the middle tasks, you're going to get faster at doing it. The first time you do something always takes the longest. So this one time a week eventually starts to go up. Your hours available eventually also start to go up, which means the actual number of posts you can post as well start to go up. So the things to prioritize here are how many hours you can commit in your calendar to actually posting content and how many posts does that actually leave you with to stay consistent. The second and most important part of the minimum viable content plan is making sure that it incorporates some level of consistency, because growing your social media following and actually building a personal brand that will long term be profitable and also be consistently growing is to aim for consistency over a long period of time. If you want to stick at this for the next 4 to 5 years at least, then what is the minimum amount of times you can post in a week? If that's once a week, that's absolutely fine. But just figure out that number and use it to influence or come to the hours available that you'd have to post in a week as well. Now, we want to make it easy for ourselves and pick the amount or pick the number of times that you can post that is the absolute lowest. Don't try to aim high thinking it'll make you grow faster, because the aim of the game with building a personal brand part-time on top of your 9 to 5 is that you don't need to grow fast. You can actually take your time in growing, because a high quality personal brand is going to give you a lot more rewards in the long term than just blowing up and kind of treating yourself like an influencer. You're also, at the end of the day, building this alongside your 9 to 5. So there's no pressure for it to blow up or grow fast or do any of the things that normal influencers or creators need to happen in order to feel good about the brands. If you have your 9 to 5 and you're building this on the side to kind of complement your 9 to 5 and also just generate income streams over time, it's okay to grow slowly. But to grow slowly, you need to be showing up in front of your audience at a regular cadence. So find a cadence that suits you and your lifestyle and commit to that over a long period of time and use that to influence the MVCP. Now, once you have an MVCP, the biggest thing or the biggest hurdle you're then going to face is actually getting over Cringe Mountain. And this is the hardest hurdle to face, because once you have your MVCP out the way, at least you know this is my basic commitment and this is what I can do. But the Cringe Mountain and the fear of, judgment from other people, your colleagues, everyone else in the world, that's the thing that's going to actually stop you from getting that MVCP out into the world. And if you haven't heard of Cringe Mountain, it's basically a little mountain that's called Cringe Mountain. And on the other side of Cringe Mountain is the land of cool. And on the side of Cringe Mountain that you're probably currently at right now, there are a bunch of naysayers, which are basically all these people around you that are probably going to judge you and be like, oh, have you seen what she posted? Oh my God, she's trying to be an influencer online. Those are the naysayers. We don't like them, okay? It's not that we don't like them. We just let their influences and their opinions influence us too much. Now, us trying to build a personal brand and start posting online, we're trying to climb Cringe Mountain. And when you're climbing Cringe Mountain, it's cringy, okay? That is just the natural kind of characteristics of this journey. You cannot avoid, I have not spelled cringe right. You cannot avoid feeling cringy when you're climbing Cringe Mountain. And Cringe Mountain feeling cringy is all because you are seen to be climbing Cringe Mountain. All the naysayers have something to say because you're climbing Cringe Mountain while they're all back here watching you do it. But as soon as you're over Cringe Mountain, and there is another side to all of this, as soon as you're over it, you will then land in the land of cool. And you know what happens when you're in the land of cool? The naysayers start being like, OMG, how did you do it? oh my God, you're so cool. And you know what? This happens to absolutely everyone. It's happened to me. I had the cringe while I was posting online, but as soon as I started to earn a little bit of money, brands started to pay me, I started to maybe have some viral moments. Suddenly people are like, oh, how did you do that? And I actually heard Chris Williamson say, everyone is jealous of your view, but no one is jealous of the hike up to the view. But how do we actually get through Cringe Mountain? Because once you have your minimum viable content plan, when you're actually going through the motions of your minimum viable content plan and trying to get it out there, you're climbing Cringe Mountain. And your MVCP is basically what takes you up Cringe Mountain. And the only way to get to the land of cool is to post more. And I know that's probably not the answer you probably want to hear, but it's the answer that actually just gets you out of the problem. It's kind of circular here. The more you post, the more you get over Cringe Mountain, and the less you care about the opinions of naysayers. And the more you post, the more you're able to figure out how to adapt your minimum viable content plan. You're able to post more and get better at posting and start reducing the time that it takes in your week to post. You can maybe even commit to posting more times, and it kind of goes round and round and round until you even forget that you're on Cringe Mountain in the first place, and this stops becoming an issue. Now, the final thing that I think is a key pillar to being able to build a personal brand online part-time that also helps your actual corporate or professional career is having valuable yet strategic things to say. And what I kind of feel like this is all the things that you would think make up your quote unquote niche. So the things that you like, that you're curious about, and your general interests in life. And then the strategy is what I like to call your professional brag book. So what you can brag about in a professional world. And where these things overlap is basically your strategic niche. And why you need a strategic niche, I think when you're building a personal brand part-time, especially in a way that complements your actual professional career, is because you'll be able to then leverage your content in professional settings and actually create that career visibility and not have to have the separation between your personal brand and your work or your life or your professional life. It basically allows you to morph a social media following into your personal brand that you can then use for work-related purposes like getting cool jobs and attracting cool jobs and increasing your income. And the most common hesitation around all of this, figuring out a niche, figuring out the strategic overlap, is feeling like you're too boring, you have nothing to say, and also that you have nothing strategic to say. And if you feel like you're at that place right now, think about your story. It's a great starting point for figuring out any of your niches. The idea and the kind of great thing about a personal brand is that it's personal. It will grow and change with you. So it's all right for it to start with your story, overlap that with your professional bragability, and then let it evolve as it evolves. And you kind of have to dig deep to figure out what to leverage out to your story. And if I take mine as an example, when I started my YouTube channel, my career in general, my story was that I was rejected intensely before I was able to get into uni, and then I was rejected intensely before I was able to get the dream job in a corporate setting that I eventually later on quit. And that inspired a lot of my initial career content on this channel because I wanted to help other people not repeat the same mistakes as me, and I was able to leverage that professionally because it helped me diversify the graduate pool and help graduates in similar situations to me, which ultimately helped other firms and the next generation. In a professional bragability context, it was essentially me helping to diversify the access to the industry I was in and those kinds of topics. So starting with your story and also the things that you're actually curious about is one place you can start. Another place you can start if you're feeling a little bit stuck is embracing the fact that you're educating those behind you and you're learning from those in front of you. I think that's also a great way to create content and also just say things online because everybody is kind of doing that. There has to be some things this week that you've either learned about or are different to a version of yourself maybe this time last year. And therefore there are things you can talk about. And those things can be personal habits or that you've read more books or that you've learned a new trick in the gym. There's loads of things that make you different to the version of yourself from 1 year ago, 1 week ago, 1 month ago. Content that you can talk about that educates people behind you. And if you're a curious person, you might be learning about things, which means you can also talk about what you're learning from people ahead of you. And the strategic overlap of this and something that you can brag about professionally is kind of limitless, because you can kind of twist anything that you've learned to apply to a corporate setting. So for example, what I did was utilize the fact that I was committing myself to my physical fitness this year so much that it helped me improve and adjust my work-life balance. Like, I had better work-life balance because of my commitment to self-improvement habits with the gym and going for walks and things like that. So I was able to kind of talk about it in a professional way, in a way that affected me in my work and my productivity, but it came from a personal angle. So in order to build a personal brand part-time online, you have to get over the posting hump, get over being seen to be online, growing a brand. You have to know kind of what you want to say with a strategic angle of how it can improve or affect your professional life. And you also need to have a bare minimum content plan that allows you to show up consistently in a way that suits your life, in a cadence that suits your life, so that you don't burn out and you don't let this kind of take over your life. And then the ways you go on to enhance that over time is by strategically monetizing yourself and building a profitable personal brand, using things like AI and automation to actually make your tasks a lot easier and take more off your plate and really lock in that minimum viable content plan and increase it. And then actually using this personal brand and the audience that you've built to actually increase your career visibility, use it to make yourself a well-known person in your industry or your niche, use it to get more lucrative jobs or increase your salary. And those are all things that you can do next, but I wouldn't attempt it before getting over the posting hump, getting over that cringe mountain, figuring out your strategic niche, and committing to a minimum viable content plan, because at the end of the day, you don't have a social media audience without the content there in the first place, or the ability to get that content out there in the first place. Now, if you need help picking out a strategic niche, I have listed out 98 content ideas that you could take me up on, as well as exactly how I put together my content niche strategically and how you can do it too. This guide is linked down in the description. I'm not being dramatic. I think doing something like this and building a personal brand part-time online is a really life-changing thing to do, because it really takes away not that much from your life, but adds so much. You're scrolling anyway, you might as well start posting content and not leaving all of your ideas in your drafts. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you later.